So I've got one full fill coat still curing on the boat now, and while it's curing, it's dry enough to work with. I'm going to go ahead and install some dowels for vertical support, about 3 of them in the front of the board underneath here. So I'm going to reach underneath there and cut those to size to support my body weight on the front of the board, as well as a couple of supports back here over the mast to support my back foot, and that'll keep the deck from flexing too much. As you can see, if I just push on it, it flexes quite a bit. And because there's no foam on the inside of the board, I need some vertical support, and we're going to take care of that. So I'll take a dive in here and show you my vertical supports here. Up in the front of the board, I've got 3 dowels placed. And the nice thing about these is these can be cut out and moved to different locations if I need to, if it gets in the way of the geometry of fitting out the electronics components. And in the back, I've got 2 dowels that go directly up from the base plate up to the deck, right where I'm going to be placing my foot. So that should work. Getting ready to do a little fine sanding of the first fill coat to get ready to put on the second fill coat. And I just wanted to show, in addition, I have coated the deck latch so it's matching nicely. And I also added some wood blocks underneath the edge of the deck to meet the cam bars from the shaft, so that will lock in the latch into place once I get the seal in place. So a little sanding, then we'll move to a second fill coat, then varnishing. So I'm done sanding off the drips, and I gotta say that adding another fill coat is just going to be for cosmetic purposes at this point. The board is essentially done. I don't think it's worth putting on another coat of epoxy. It's just going to add weight, and it's not going to change the improve the cosmetics of it that much. So now that I've got all the drips sanded out of it, I think I'm going to go ahead and apply some spar urethane and probably about 3 or 4 coats of that, and we're going to call it a done deal. So just a couple of comments about applying varnish to a wood boat. The epoxy will denature under ultraviolet light, so you've got to protect it from ultraviolet light with marine spar varnish that has ultraviolet protection in it. And 1 quart will be plenty. I did a whole kayak with 1 quart of these. The issue is it's going to take about 3 coats to get the minimum amount of protection you want. Otherwise, over the years in sun exposure, it could cause the whole thing to delaminate, which I learned an unfortunate lesson on my kayak that I had to refinish after 20 years of use. Although it lasted 20 years. So I'm sure I could hopefully get as long of use out of this board as well. There is a bit of a technique to applying varnish. And I'm following Nick Schaad's technique that he has in his kayak building videos, but I'm basically taking 1-foot sections of the board between the staple lines in the wood and moving from one side of the board to the next, maintaining a wet edge down the board and trying to keep the varnish from pooling up in any one place. Between coats, I will sand with a light, very high grain, like 220 or above sandpaper, just to roughen up the surface for the next coat to apply. And we'll be doing 3 full coats. I'll probably time lapse 1 coat just so you can see the technique of how the varnish is applied, but I'm not going to bore you. There's been enough time lapse versions of me doing coats of stuff, so I don't think you need to see that. And then we'll jump forward to finishing off the board, installing the hardware, and applying the traction pad. So for the traction pad for the board, I came up with something that I'm pretty excited about. I found on Amazon for about 15 bucks a deck traction pad that's used on like wood decked sailboats. They were selling a 2 meter long runner of this faux tiki wood appearing deck pad, and it's got the same kind of rough texture as wood, which is funny, but it's made out of neoprene foam. The idea is I want to maintain the vertical striping of the wood appearance of the deck. The strips that are on the foam are about double the length or double the width of the strips of the cedar that are on the board. So what I'm doing is I've rigged up a straight edge with my razor blade knife, and I'm cutting strips that are the same width of the cedar on the board, and then placing them on every other strip on the deck of the board. I should be able to cover the whole board. The nice thing about it too is that since I got a full meter or 2 meters from the Amazon, I've got a whole nother board patch here that if the strip method doesn't work out well, I could always replace it with that, or I could always buy another traction pad. But since this is the prototype, and since I'm trying to stick with the woody appearance, I'm gonna go with this.
So the woody board is finished in all of her imperfect glory, but this is just the first step in this massive epic project. Now it's time to dig into the research and figure out what I'm going to do for batteries, a propulsion system, and electronics. And I genuinely look forward to feedback from anyone that knows as much about this as I do, or even more, to help me figure out how to proceed. If you watched all 7 of these videos, my hat is off to you. Thank you so much. I hope you learned something and can even learn from my mistakes to build something better. And I hope you have a lot of fun with it at the same time. Stay tuned for update videos on the next steps in the build. And thank you for watching The Fine Line Between Stupid and Clever.